Welcome to our May edition of Let's Get Growing. It's not long till June and then it'll really be hot. A lot to do in the landscape this month. So here's a list of vegetables that you can plant in May, and remember that these are your vegetables that'll be later in the season. They take the heat, so plant them, water them, particularly when they start producing fruit so that they don't become bitter. Plant caladium tubers after it starts getting warm. You can either buy the plants or you can buy the tubers, and they'll have little points sticking out of them. Pop those out and you'll get more leaves. So you can also do your potted seedlings that you've been growing for the garden outside, and you can also plant some more warm season annuals. So every kind of pest is going to be active in the landscape right now. This is their time, so watch for bagworms on your conifers, fungus on our roses, mildew on crepe myrtles along with crepe myrtle scale. Watch for whiteflies on your gardenias and your ligustrum. Aphids are on the new growth of everything again this month. And caterpillars on your Boston ivy are always a problem. We can use BT for worms, and those are worms. If you have areas in your lawn that get a lot of traffic and are not covering with your turf, make sure that you aerate those areas, and then we can get air and nutrients down to the root system. Don't just punch a hole. We're going to want to remove a core. Mulch everything for your hot weather. Remember, it's like a blanket. It's going to keep it cool and it's going to keep it moist. Mow once a week, and remember, as it starts to heat up in the landscape, we're going to start raising the height on our mower. Once again, prune those late blooming spring shrubs right after they quit blooming. Do not lift your daffodils and separate them or remove the foliage until all the foliage is turned yellow. That's returning nutrients to the bulb so that we'll get beautiful flowers next season. So there'll be some climbing roses that are blooming this month. Make sure that you prune them after they bloom. If you're planting chrysanthemums or you have them in your bed areas, we're going to start pinching them now, and we're going to pinch them every 6 weeks. Pinch the tops out of your caladiums as soon as they're 6 inches tall. This is going to help them spread out and be bushy and not tall and leggy. Don't forget, feed the birds. So you know the newest thing is succulents, and we're going to learn how to do a fairy garden, and we're also going to plant these. Are called living stones. Lithops is their botanic name. And you can see that this one is ready to go. You find a decent container. Make sure that they have holes in the bottom. I'm just using a regular potting soil that I've added some sand to. And then you put a little bit. When you're doing containers that aren't just round, you're going to need to fill the cracks and crevices before you plant. And then we're going to take this little baby, and if you see it's a little too tall for my container, that's not a problem. We're just going to gently tease the roots apart. So you see the roots are still on there. And this is a very interesting little plant because its leaves are actually these bumps, and then the new leaves come out of the middle and they bloom right here. They'll have a little tiny bloom on them, and you really don't have to do much except give them a lot of sun, a little bit of water when they're growing, and they usually grow in the spring, and during the winter they're just practically dormant. You don't need to water them very much at all. Sun is the biggest thing. So we can add a couple of rocks, top dress a little bit, and then how about some little baby mushrooms? Don't overdo it. Just let it be. Because remember, succulents don't need that much water. So we want to make sure that we're not planting them too deep. We want to make sure that we leave a little ledge on the side. This is burro's tail. And so when you're planting a container like this, you want to have your thriller, which is this calancho, your spiller, which is this burro's tail, and then your filler. So we have a filler, thriller, and spiller. And you can see that this one hasn't been potted up too long in this container, but that's all right. It'll do great in here. Succulents are not that picky about repotting. So once again, we want to make sure that we fill all the voids. We don't want any air gaps. And on this burro's tail, if some of these little parts fall off, they'll make new plants. Just throw them on top of the soil. So once you've planted, filling in all those little crevices, cracks and crevices in between them. Notice I'm not packing it down, I'm just pushing it in so that there's no voids. So there's a couple of ways that you can top dress. One is just by using gravel or river rocks. Or let's take a step farther. This is called sheet moss. And you can buy it, it comes in a bag. You can find it at the craft store. And this, you can see, is the brown side is where it was growing against the soil. And so we're going to put that down, that side down, and we're going to fill in around the plants, just lifting it up a little bit. And now, here's our home. So who's going to live in this house? How about Mr. and Mrs. Hare? You can get as fancy as you want, or you can just put one little piece in. It just adds a little new dimension to your succulents.